Hey everyone, this is me defrosting my Hotpoint FZM80 frost-free freezer. I've had to do this a couple of times before. What happens is that this frost-free freezer builds up such an enormous amount of ice that what happens, the ice builds up behind this rear panel and pushes it out. You can see I've actually removed some of these little bolts which hold it in. There's a fan system behind here that keeps the air circulating, so when the freezer's working it's blowing cold air, freezing air throughout the whole freezer. Well, what is happening is that either because the door seal is not so good now, or just because of you opening the door to get into the freezer, this frost-free freezer builds up ice behind this panel. And as you can see here, can you see this panel is bowed out towards the front. So what it does, it pushes all the drawers out against the door, which stops the door closing properly, which allows air to enter and helps to build up even more ice. Okay, I've started doing this about 10 minutes ago. It's now 25 past 11, so I started at 11:15. I've got a blower working away down here. Okay, that's blowing hot air into the freezer. So now I'm going to see how long it's going to take before this rear panel, it's already beginning to move. It was totally frozen in up until very recently, a few minutes ago. It's still, you can see here the amount of ice that's melting and coming down. There's an enormous gap along here, even though it had two bolts holding it in against here. Somehow it had managed to force them out. So I've got everything going. I've got the hot air blower, it's beginning to thaw. I've got towels here. It's going to take a long time, I think. You can see the ice that's built up in here. So I'll come back in an hour or so's time and see where we're at. We've now been going about 25 minutes and things are thawing. I've already removed some of the frost from down here. The worst of the frost, the ice that was hanging down, is now gone. The heater here is blasting away on full power. I've got the heat blowing straight into the freezer, as you can see, and hopefully I've now removed all of the little bolts from the back panel, and that should hopefully thaw out enough for that to come out, and that'll help if I can get that out, it'll help to thaw all the other ice that's packed in behind it. This has happened before, and where this back panel is all bowed out, it actually tears out the threads of these little bolts from the panel behind, and I've replaced those already with little bolts with a slightly bigger diameter, and I may have to do that again because this is obviously all pulled out. The ice has forced it out. There's no stopping the ice once it starts to build up, and it may well be that I'll have to replace the 8 or 9 bolts with new ones of even larger diameter. Anyway, that's it. It's now 25 minutes since I started, so we're making good progress. Well, moving along here, it's only a few minutes since I did the last clip, and although I don't want to pull this plastic too much because that's how you break things. The ice is just very strong. Already you can see that things are beginning to go. This back panel has got to come right out, but there's still a lot of ice down here at the bottom, so it's beginning to ease. I'm not going to get anything sharp and start to break the ice away because I don't want to do any damage. Obviously, although it's an old freezer, it's working, and I don't want to write it off because all of these parts are incredibly expensive. If you break it, I'm gonna end up actually throwing the freezer away. So I'm gonna let it keep going. Another few minutes and I'll come back and see about doing an update. This heater is still blasting away. I did, despite what I said, I did give it a little bit of help down the sides here where there'd been a nice build up that was holding this thing in, but it's still pretty much stuck. Quite a bit of ice has come out. You can see that there's water now dripping out, so it's all thawing up in there. This is actually this plastic is quite warm. Down the bottom it's not, unfortunately. Don't know what I can do about that apart from lifting this heater up maybe and blasting it towards the bottom, but if this is thawing, the water will run down and obviously thaw the ice that's stuck behind here, and that seems to be working. It's only been going 45 minutes, so I'm doing pretty well. Okay, here we are. We're now almost dead on the hour, and you can see that the ice, you probably can't see, but the ice down here, there's still ice holding it down here, and the same this side is narrower, but you can see that it's dripping away, it's thawing out. You can see the water down there. Obviously the main ice build-up is in this area, and every now and again I can hear it tick as the pressure that's built up is broken as the ice is melting. I'm not gonna, you can see the water coming out here. Okay, I don't really want to pull it and try and break the ice. I can feel ice under there, especially over this side here. There's a lot of ice here. I've tried pulling it out from up here. I can pull it out a long way, but there's no point, because if it's still stuck in, this is now becoming quite warm. Even down here I can feel warmth, so it's well above freezing, so the water is thawing. I've been removing a bit of ice as ice has dropped down, as I've taken it out. I've lifted chunks of ice out before it's thawed, and every now and again I'm giving it a wipe with a sponge. So still no water has come out on the floor, so I'm quite pleased about that. Anyway, there's another update. I'll come back in about another 15 minutes time. It's now been going an hour. I thought I'd give this a bit of a help. It's only 10 minutes on. Now I don't have a hairdryer, unfortunately. I don't have enough hair to bother about a hairdryer, but I do have a heat gun. So what I've done, I've turned the heat gun on to low heat, and I'm going to be very careful, and I'm going to see if I can help it along a little bit down these sides. Yeah, that's quite hot, so I've got to be very careful here. Keep it moving, not get it too close. I've even got it on low heat, but I've got to be very careful. It is going, but it's this lower section now which is just holding this panel in. If anyone tries to do similar, be very careful, because the heat gun, if I hold it in one place, and even now, I reckon yeah, that's quite warm, even with me moving it like this. But hopefully this is going to get rid of that ice that's down the side and is locking this panel in. You can see that water is dripping away down here. It's coming out, but you can hear you can see it's pretty much still stuck in there with the ice that's behind this panel down here. And unfortunately I think it's double panel, so it's taking a while to thaw. I really wanted to get this done if I could within 2 hours to to give me a chance to keep my frozen food frozen. Whether I'm going to do that, I don't know. This is obviously the difficult bit, getting the heat into the bottom down here. So far so good. I can't see how much I've managed to get rid of the ice, but got to keep this gun moving. I say it's on low heat. Yep, look at the water. The water is coming down here now, pretty thick and fast, which is what I'm after. Just feel it. Not too bad. The side is obviously this is a problem because there's no ice in the side here. That's actually pretty hot. I don't want to go and mess up the side panels. Just a quick update to say that we've now been going for 1 3/4 hours, and it's all going a bit slowly, but what I found was that with the heater tilted upwards, all the heat was coming up here where it's now free of ice. So what I've done, I've actually put the heater onto just a low box, so the heat is now being blasted much lower down here. This is now getting quite warm, and this is where it needs to be heated up. I can feel that here, for example, this is cold because there's still a lot of ice behind it. From here it's now getting warm. As I said, the problem here is that this is double skin, but with a bit of luck this is now blowing hot air up through these slots, so hopefully that will speed the process up. Okay, back to give an update after 2 hours. I'm afraid this is slower than I thought it was going to be. I wish I'd had the idea of lowering the heater before, because this is where the main ice buildup was, and this is now much warmer, and I'm getting a lot of ice melting and water coming down. I've actually mopped quite a bit up already off camera, so it's all working. I can still see ice down the sides, so there's still quite a lot of ice behind here, and I just wish I'd put the heater down before. Back again, it's now been over 4 hours and water is still coming down. You might be able to see some in the corner there. I've been mopping it out with the sponge. What I've had to do, but it's still stuck. This area here, there's still, you can still see ice down the side here. Obviously the ice is behind this double-skinned panel. This is an air duct, and obviously the ice is behind the air duct, frozen against the body of the freezer behind. So I don't know how much ice is there, but it's still stuck. There's obviously a hell of a lot of ice down the bottom, this bottom section of this plastic air duct. Now coming up to 5 hours, and I've just realised I think I may have made a silly mistake at the very beginning. I didn't unplug the freezer. Okay, I just opened the door, and at the top there's a contacts switch, which I thought, and I'm not sure, makes the freezer work. When you open the door, the freezer stops working. Well, I'm wondering if maybe that is just the fan that stops working, because when you look down the back of this, I'll try and see whether I can do that. When you look down the back of this, you can see that down there is the freezer unit. Well, that's where the problem is. That's where all the ice is. And I wonder whether, even though the door switch is deactivated, whether the freezer unit itself is still running and creating more ice, of course, because it's now open to the air. I've now pulled the plug, and water, of course, is still coming down because the freezer unit has got all these fins on it which are full of ice. So it's now thawing away. Whether this is going to help the process, I don't know, but I suggest if anyone does a similar thing with their freezer, that you don't do as I did. What you do is you pull the plug when you start, so you can make sure that the freezer unit itself isn't running. Well, I'm back actually much sooner than I expected, within 5 minutes or so of my last shot. Since I pulled the plug, water is now coming down much faster than it was before. So I think that while I had it plugged in, the freezer unit was still working, so it was actually making more ice the whole time. You've got to pull the plug when you first start to stop the freezer unit working, otherwise it's going to keep working even though the circulating fan inside isn't. The freezer unit is still going to be working. If I'd done that, I reckon I could have had this defrosted within a couple of hours or so. Okay, here we are. I've taken this panel out. You can see that there's ice, a lot of ice still in here. This is where the main build-up is, from here downwards. Where I've pulled this out, this was stuck to the back of this panel. I think it'll be okay when I put it back in. This is now come unstuck. This is sticky. Okay, where it's pulled off this bit here, it's unfortunately left a bit on and torn, but whoops, I'm going to leave that standing there. I've got the heater still blowing in here, and you can see that water is dripping out of here like crazy, and there's going to be a ton of it because the ice build-up looks as though it comes from here, and it's huge, a huge thickness up to here. This ice here is 3 centimeters, I should say. Just try and get this bit out and try and stop that dripping down onto the floor. That's it for now. I'll come back as soon as I can. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see, the piece of panel that was off the back of the plastic has now dropped off. It was stuck to the freezer unit by the ice. That's now clear. Okay, we've got more stuff coming away down here. Okay, I don't want to start pulling foil off for no reason, but you can see the ice is now disappearing at a great rate of knots, so I think I can assume that the freezer unit was still working. Okay, I'll come back and give an update a little bit later. Just about at the end of it now. It looks as though all the ice has gone. Bearing in mind, of course, that the thickness of ice that was on the front of the freezer unit was also on the back. Anyway, it had obviously been pushed off from the back of the freezer and had pushed forward, so it's now gone back again. Obviously a bit of the tin foil has been affected. The tin foil is just stuck on there with a bit of sticky. Oh no, look, there is actually a bracket on the bottom which has obviously come out. There must have been a screw hole up there for it. That is also pulled out, so I'll have to screw that back in again just to keep it up. That's obviously pulled out of the plastic, much as these other ones have. It's soon going to be time to put it all back together again, not too difficult. So I'll let it finish dripping and dry out. It has taken a lot longer than I thought. It's taken 8.5 hours up to now. I wish I'd pulled the plug earlier, and it would perhaps have taken perhaps half the time. Perhaps it would have been about 4 hours, I don't know. So my advice is, if anyone does a similar thing with their freezer, Hotpoint or any other make that is a similar design, make sure you pull the plug out first. Okay, well here's the freezer unit mounted back in again. There's a little bracket which you can see down there, and this a little bolt, obviously because of the ice, had been pulled out of the back of the freezer, where it was just screwed into a hole. The brackets are both bent, and the freezer unit is therefore held off the back wall of the freezer itself. Obviously, I guess if it all freezes up again, it'll all move again off the back wall. But I think when that happens, it'll be time to chuck the freezer away anyway. So this now is really all ready to have the back panel mounted back in again. One of the problems is that this foam pad, which has foil on the back of it, which has to be attached to the back of the panel that's going to have to go in, is soaking wet. Okay, I could put it in like that, but I'd rather not, because of course that will immediately freeze and encourage the growth of ice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it in front of the heater for a while, propped up in front of the heater, to see if I can dry it. Now I can start to reassemble this back plate. First of all, there's some foam got to go on here. The double-sided tape is still on there, so let's just try putting that down like that. Okay, there's that one. How does this one go? This goes very similar. So that goes up onto here. That comes down, down and round the corner. Now it's a matter of getting this pad to go back on here. Now this is not going to be pretty. We know that, but there's still sticky on there, so we'll see how well it goes. I reckon it will go well enough. It's only just got to be held on there. There we go, that'll do for that. So that's got that pad back on there. Got a couple of bits of sticky tin foil here. So let's go over, and again, it's not going to be pretty, but let's just stick it up roughly where it came from. Some bits have got stuck together, which is a shame, because I'm sure they're going to tear when they separate. No, there's a long piece. Let's put that along there. Okay, there's a little piece to go in there, and a bit to go down there. Okay, and it's stuck up, so hopefully it'll stay up, and we can call that ready to go. All we've got to do is get the top holes lined up. Okay, if I can just get one, there we are, it's over the fan. If I get one bolt in there, there's the top hole up there. Round about there, let's see whether that'll go in. Okay, you saw me lining up the bolt and putting it into the hole, and unfortunately I had to put the camera down, but all I've now got to do is replace. I've put another bolt in down here. All I've now got to do is to go round and replace all of those bolts. As you can see, all of them are in. Just one more to go. All I'm using is a small socket, and I'm using it as like a screwdriver. I'm not doing it tightly. There's no point, because all you do is if you over tighten it, it will just rip out again. So there we are, last one, hand tight, job done. Freezer defrosted, all back in, and hopefully when I plug it in it'll start up. I'll be able to put the drawers in, and I'll have a freezer that will actually freeze again. Okay, now just to finish off, right, everything's switched on, fast freeze. We're obviously showing a high temperature, and just to show you, all the drawers now, everything all back in, drawers all cleaned out. Okay, everything back in, and only one thing to say, there's the switch that makes the fan stop when you open the door. Don't worry, when you first close the door, the fan won't start immediately. It keeps starting and stopping. Now that it's, there we are, it's just started. Now that it's cooling the fridge, you're cooling the freezer down, so I assume that's normal. Everything seems to be working, so that's the end of the job. All I've got to do now is wait for it to get completely cold so I can replace my frozen food. It's now 10.5 hours. Okay, well here we are. I'm back the next day. The freezer has been left on overnight, and as you can see now, the lights are working. Okay, everything is fine. The lights are as they should be. Open the door, the fan stops. Everything is all in. Right, everything is working fine. It's freezing. Everything is now frozen. Luckily, everything didn't completely thaw, so I'm hoping to save it. So there we are, job done. Successful. Close the door again now. I've even got a better door seal than I had. I can feel that the door now is sealing more firmly than it was, so hopefully it'll be a long time before it freezes up like that again and gets full of ice. So job done. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope that you found it useful and entertaining. So this is me now signing off until the next time. Bye for now.